Welcome back to the DAC Recap, the show where we recap all things Drexel and Philadelphia sports. I am your host, Luciano Duffy. Make sure you like and subscribe down below. Now, let's jump right into it. Drexel sports are hot. Between banner-ending seasons, hot spring starts, and Dragons getting nationally recognized, Drexel sports has been on a tear this past week. Aside from the stresses of Week 9, it is a good week to be a Dragon. Try to follow along and count how many wins Drexel sports have accumulated this week. Starting us off, your Drexel Dragons are CAA men's basketball champions. This is the first time Drexel has won the CAA championship since joining back in 2001. With this victory, the Dragons punch their ticket to the big dance. This marks the first time in 25 years that Drexel is making it to March Madness. For reference on how long it's been, here are some things that happened back in 1996. Pokemon was just introduced to the world. The Fox News Channel made their debut. Bill Clinton was re-elected as president. Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls were in the middle of their second three-peat as NBA champions. There were only 100,000 websites compared to the current over 1 billion that exist today. Independence Day was the largest grossing movie. The Tickle Me Elmo toy was just released. And the craziest stat of them all, most current Drexel students weren't even alive yet. Before we dive into the big championship game, let's recap how the Dragons got here. The Dragons came into the CAA tournament as the 6th seed. Their first win came against number 3 seeded College of Charleston, 80-75. It was a well-balanced scoring attack for the Dragons as Zach Walton, Cam Winter, TJ Bickerstaff, and James Butler all had themselves double-digit nights. Walton led the bunch with 17 points as he shot 5 for 6 from long range. Winter added 16 points with 4 assists. TJ Bickerstaff had 12 of his 14 points in the second half alone and grabbed 8 boards to go along with it. Butler added 12 points and 8 rebounds as well. Drexel's team set numerous tournament records on Sunday. The 11 three-pointers shattered the team's previous mark of 8. The Dragons shot 61% from behind the arc, and their .554 shooting percentage broke the team's previous record set in the 2011 season against Townsend. On Monday, the Dragons beat the number 2 seeded Northeastern Huskies 74-67. Again, 4 Dragons were able to score double-digit points. However, this time, freshman Xavier Bell replaced TJ Bickerstaff on the list. Bell had 11 points, while Bickerstaff grabbed a career-high 11 rebounds. Walton led the scoring again for the Dragons with his 15 points, as Cam Winter was just behind him with his 14. Butler scored 12 points and grabbed 12 rebounds for his 6th double-double of the season. Butler also scored his 1,000th career point in this game. He moved into 9th on Drexel's career rebounding list. Tuesday was the biggest victory of them all, as the Dragons beat the 8th-seeded Elon Phoenix 63-56. This snapped Elon's 7-game win streak. This time, it was Drexel's bench players who led the scoring, as Mate Okris and Xavier Bell dropped 14 and 11 respectively. Okris did his scoring from behind the arc and went 4 of 5 from 3. Drexel junior guard Cameron Winter was named the most outstanding performer of the tournament and was joined on the all-tournament squad by teammates James Butler and Zach Walton. In this COVID-riddled season, the Dragons were able to stay focused and win it all. Their 2 weeks off in mid-February due to the COVID seemed to have been a blessing in disguise, as they had fresh legs and were hungry for competition. Due to all the cancellations this season, and because JMU hosted the tournament, the Dragons actually played more games at the Atlantic Union Bank Center than they did in their own DAC this year. With all their newfound success here, it begs the questions. Should Drexel just relocate their home court? Do I have to rename my show? Welcome back to the Atlantic Union Bank Center recap? Nah, that doesn't flow. All jokes aside, congratulations to the men's basketball team on an incredible finish to their season. Now, we all wait for Selection Sunday in order to determine Drexel's next opponent in March Madness. As for the girls' basketball team, they are currently en route to their own CAA championship run. They enter the tournament as the 3rd seed and will take on the tournament's host, the 6th-seeded Elon Phoenix, tonight. Drexel's Hannah Nihill became the first ever Dragon to earn the CAA Defensive Player of the Year award. Nihill also received the prestigious Dean Ehlers Leadership Award. She was also named a first-team All-CAA performer and was joined on the All-League team by Kashana Washington, who was an All-CAA third-team selection. Good luck in the tournament, girls. In other Drexel sports news, the golf team completed its southern trip with a convincing victory at the Dow Bendow Invitational. The Dragons had by far their best round of the season and ran away from the field at the Jacksonville Beach Golf Course. The Dragons finished Tuesday's round 1 over par and ended the event at 585 plus 17. Angelo Giant Solopuslo picked up medalist honors. It was the first victory of the senior's career at Drexel. Alex Butler was right behind him as he finished in second. The senior shot 1 under par on the day and finished the 36th hole event at 143, which was plus 1. The Dragons had 3 student athletes finish in the top 5 as fellow senior Jeffrey Cunningham tied Butler for the best round of the day. He finished the event tied for 4th overall at 6 over par. Last Wednesday, the Drexel's men's and women's swimming teams opened up their seasons at Villanova with a split. The men's defeated Villanova 123-81, while the women fell to the Wildcats 115-84. In the men's 200-meter medley, the Dragons finished first and second, picking up 15 quick points. Freshman Will Salio breezed to a first-place finish in the men's 100-yard freestyle with a time of 9:32.99. Salio also earned first place in the 500-yard freestyle. John Scully contributed to the third-place finishes for DU. His relay team was victorious in the 200-yard medley, the 100-yard free, and another in the 200-yard free. On the women's side, Ryan Styler also had an outstanding meet. She earned first place in both the 50-yard and the 100-yard freestyle. Styler was also part of the first place 200-yard free relay team. The diving events for both the men's and women's were unfortunately canceled. The women's lacrosse team have continued their undefeated season as they picked up wins versus fellow Philly opponents Temple and Villanova. Against Temple, the girls won 19-11 behind freshman Corinne Benark's 6 points. This was her second 4-point game of the season, and her 6 points were a career best. Jamie Schneiderith and Colleen Grady each chipped in 4 goals as well. Against Villanova, the Dragons scored their first 5 goals of the game and never looked back. They ended up beating the Wildcats 17-7 in what was their home opener at Vitus Field. Colleen Grady led the charge as he set a personal high with 8 points in the game. Carson Harris contributed 6 points as she moved into 6th place on Drexel's career scoring list with 172. Drexel's Corinne Bednark has been awarded CAA Women's Lacrosse Rookie of the Week honors. Colleen Grady, Carson Harris, and Lucy Schneidereth are each ranked in the top 5 in the league for both goals and points. Zoe Bennett averages more than 10 saves per game, which leads the CAA. This 5-0 start for the Dragons lands them nationally ranked as they are 16th in the latest Inside Lacrosse poll and 24th in the IWLCA Division I coaches pool. The Dragons will be off until March 20th, where they will host LaSalle. The men's lacrosse team opened their season with a 12-10 victory versus Townsend. Sean Donnelly, a redshirt transfer from Syracuse, led the scoring for the Dragons as he found the back of the net on 4 occasions, totaling 7 points on 14 shots on net. Ryan Gennard scored 3 times and dished out 2 assists as well. The Dragons broke a 10-10 tie with the final 2 goals of the contest. This ensured the Dragons' first victory over the Tigers since 2015. Drexel is scheduled to face the University of Delaware this Saturday at Vitus Field. The men's soccer team split last week with games against SJU and LaSalle. Against SJU, the Dragons were able to bounce back from their 2-0 defeat earlier in the season as they handled the Hawks this time 4-0. Chris Donovan scored 2 goals and tallied 2 assists for the Dragons. Drexel scored 3 of its 4 goals in an 8-minute span. The Dragons' defense was dominant throughout the match. Not only did it keep the ball on the offensive side of the field for the majority of the game, but Drexel also held St. Joseph's to 6 shots as goalkeeper Steven Kolopasili earned his 9th career shutout. On Saturday, however, the Dragons lost 3-1, with the only bright spot being that Elliot Swingner scored his first collegiate goal. Next up for the Dragons is a match against Hofstra this Saturday. The women's soccer team, along with the men's and women's tennis teams, did not compete last week as they had their games postponed. As for the Sixers, they picked up an impressive win against the Utah Jazz last Wednesday. Joel Embiid continued to make his case for MVP as he dropped 40 points and 19 rebounds. But that wasn't all. Down by 3 in the last possession of the game, Embiid dribbled out past the 3-point line and drilled one right over Bojan Bogdanovic to force overtime. In OT, Tobias Harris had it his way. He scored 11 of the 13 Sixers points and led them to a 131-123 win. Philly's presence down at the All-Star game in Atlanta was greatly diminished as Embiid and Simmons both couldn't play as a result of COVID-19 contact tracing. They both used a barber who tested positive, which is why the NBA decided to play it safe and not include the duo. Doc Rivers was the coach for Team Durant, but they lost to Team LeBron 170-150. Lastly, it was announced on March 2nd that fans will be allowed back for Sixers and Flyers games in the Wells Fargo. The Sixers will allow fans at a limited capacity for their next home game against the San Antonio Spurs on March 14th. And that's all for the DAC Recap. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Instagram. Tune in next week for yet another recap.
Welcome back to Inside Look, an Inside Ambition segment where we take a deep dive into something happening here at Drexel. I'm Alexandra George. Today marks a year since some of us started to take the global part of the pandemic seriously. Remember when we thought things would go back to normal after our extended spring break? Students finally returned to Philadelphia public schools last Monday after almost a full year of closure. This return came in the midst of ongoing disputes about building safety and ventilation. Concerns were voiced by members of the teachers' union about the safety of resuming in-person learning. So, a public health expert, sadly it wasn't Dr. Fauci, reviewed whether it was appropriate to open schools. A decision was ultimately reached that meant a fraction of the district's 120,000 buildings would reopen on Monday the 1st. Plus, Temple announced its fall reopening plan, and Drexel plans to move even more people back onto campus come spring quarter. What does reopening when it comes to education look like? Is it safe? Could it be too late? Now, let's take an inside look. Last October, the Philadelphia School District presented its hybrid learning plan for schools, in which students were offered the choice of attending classes in person, but only for 2 days a week. Sounds like a college student's dream. But since then, school openings have been put on hold several times until just last week. Today, we're going to discuss the ongoing conflict between the teachers' union, parents, and school officials. First, we'll take a look at concerns regarding the safety of this plan and ventilation in classrooms. Second, we will talk about why some insist that students need in-person learning to flourish socially and academically. Third, we will talk about what this might mean for universities in the area come this fall. Last month, the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers urged its members to stay home from work, arguing that classrooms would not be properly ventilated and demanding that teachers be vaccinated first. To address these concerns, the district offered to install 3,000 fans in classroom windows with the hopes of improving air circulation. I know what you're thinking. We haven't seen that many fans since The Weeknd bombed that Super Bowl performance. But fans? They're the COVID Destroyer 2.0. I don't think the CDC approved this device. But hey, just stick a mask on it and you'll be fine. Experts say that while window fans do help to push fresh air into classrooms, they create another problem: directional airflow. If a student who has COVID is sitting in front of a fan, the air that blows onto them might then flow onto other students, causing more students to catch the virus. At that rate, COVID would spread faster in Philly schools than it is in Texas now that they axed the mask mandate. As a result, this proposal was abandoned, and instead, schools are opting to install air purifiers for rooms that don't have sufficient ventilation. A group of teachers and parents took their concerns to Twitter with the hashtag #OnlyWhenIt'sSafe, along with a public letter writing campaign requesting that Mayor Jim Kenney delay school openings. Community members have sent 6,000 letters so far. Sounds like Kenney was having his Vernon Dursley moment. It is also worth noting that only 1/3 of eligible students, about 9,000 pre-kindergarten to second graders, actually signed up to return to school on March 1st. Fears about safety and ventilation are clearly overwhelming both teachers and families. Now let's discuss why others are saying that it is necessary to reopen schools. Whereas lamer cities like New York and Chicago simply took inventory of classrooms that had windows or HVAC systems, Philadelphia, the best city, attempted to measure airflow by conducting air balancing tests in all of its classrooms. These tests determine how much fresh air circulates through a given space to decide how many people can safely inhabit it. Furthermore, the district has invested $65 million overall into hand sanitizer stations, protective equipment, plexiglass barriers, ventilation repairs, and social distancing markers. Meanwhile, their textbooks have been out of date for decades, and there is a booger from 1962 stuck under a desk in a classroom somewhere. And we wonder why the pilots movement was brought to Drexel and Penn. As of last week, COVID-19 vaccines were made available to Philly school employees through a partnership with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. The first dose of the Pfizer vaccine has now been distributed to at least 9,000 teachers and other faculty. Plus, city officials have said that all Philly educators who want the vaccine will be able to receive it by the end of this month. Students and staff also have access to rapid testing. While schools are in operation, students and staff will be required to pre-screen themselves for COVID-19 symptoms and wear masks. At literally everyone who is not logging their daily symptoms in the Health Tracker app, as an RA, I feel obligated to use this platform to remind you to do so. Those pushing for these measures claim that they will prevent the spread of COVID-19 at schools. After all, we can trust kids to follow these measures because they are so well known for their good hygiene and cleanliness. Wow, I never thought I'd be nostalgic for the days when you could give a peer a good old wet willy. In a report weighing the health and educational risks between virtual and in-person classes, the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine concluded that schools have a value beyond merely teaching children. Who would have thunk? For example, schools provide much-needed mental health services, special needs education, childcare, and meals to students. Children in kindergarten through third grade especially need the social interactions that come with being at school, since they are still learning to regulate their own behavior, emotions, and attention. On the bright side, at least these students will have an excuse for their social anxiety and lack of meaningful relationships. I can't say the same. Looking at higher education in the Philly area, it appears that Temple University plans to return to in-person classes by this fall. Temple intends to open all academic buildings, residence and dining halls, and recreation centers on campus. To accomplish this goal, the university has advised students to follow 4 essential pillars of public health: wearing masks, frequently washing hands, following social distancing measures, and regularly monitoring their health. But wait, come here. Come a little closer. Closer? I have a secret to tell you. I heard from a certain very handsome, scaly, fire-breathing mascot that Temple's owl doesn't wash its talons after it goes number 2. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Hashtag hygiene or digene. Hashtag Mario would never. Hashtag Peekapoo. Temple is working on a phased return to get students back in classrooms. This spring, the university will expand the availability of in-person classes and keep COVID tests accessible for students and faculty. There are understandable, valid concerns about both keeping schools shut down and opening them up again. Right now, the Philadelphia Teachers Union and the district are still working on a plan to open schools for students above 2nd grade. Moreover, with just a fraction of the district's school buildings being open, we won't know for sure what public education in Philadelphia will look like for the rest of this year. As vaccines are being rolled out, it's important that as students, we are doing our best to stay safe. Now, we want to know what you think. Did the district make the right decision by opening schools up? Do you think that schools have taken sufficient health precautions? And what tea do you have to spill about Temple's mascot? Let us know in the comments below. To stay up to date with all of our content, make sure to follow our Instagram at inside_ambition and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and comment below. Thanks for watching, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.
Hi, welcome back to Drexel Update here on Inside Ambition. I'm Emily, and today we're going to be talking with Yulia Kazan, the president of Dragons for UNICEF. Hi, Yulia, how are you?
Hi, Emily. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Great. So I guess first tell us a little bit about yourself. What year, what major?
Sure. So I'm a third-year pre-junior student, and I'm majoring in political science, and hope to also major in French as well.
Oh, awesome. So tell us a little bit about what Dragons for UNICEF is and what your organization does.
Sure. So Dragons for UNICEF is the UNICEF Unite chapter at Drexel University. Now it's our second year, so we're a fairly new organization, and our main goal is to advocate for children's rights, spread the word about different issues concerning children's rights, advocating, so sending emails, letters to members of Congress, but also raising funds for UNICEF emergency relief programs. So this is kind of an overview of what we do throughout the year.
Awesome. So what are some specific causes in particular that you've raised money for?
Sure. So during the summer, since I said we're a fairly new organization, first year we were just trying to accommodate to the campus community, just figuring out. But last summer we were able to raise money for the Yemen crisis, which affected children disproportionately. And children are among the most vulnerable populations. So we were excited to host a virtual live concert, and we were impressed by how many people showed up and donated to the cause. And last term, actually at the beginning of this term, we were able to raise money for the Venezuelan crisis as well. We had a panel discussion and we attached a fundraiser to it. And again, we were really impressed by the amount of people who cared about this cause and were able also, because that's an important thing, we were able to donate. We also raised money for the Syrian crisis last year. So I guess we really focused on this humanitarian crisis, but we're looking to expanding our range of events.
That's amazing. Those are some really great causes, and I'm glad that people really connected with them and were able to help out in any way that they could. So I guess what are you guys currently working on right now?
Sure. So now we have an exciting project coming up. It's a discussion on female genital mutilation. We will have a doctor speaking about kind of the health effects and aspects of this practice on women. And then we also have two international students who are willing to talk about their personal experience of living in cultures where female genital mutilation is the norm. So that will be coming up at the end of March. We will post more about it and keep our followers and audience updated. And it's open to everyone.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Certainly a topic, that's a really interesting one. So how do you guys spread awareness on campus for the different causes that you're fundraising for?
Sure. So now in the virtual world, to say it's been a little bit challenging at first to figure out how are we going to spread the word about our events and our message. But we found different ways. So for example, we have a monthly newsletter that we send out. So that usually includes events or updates on different issues, what's going on in the world at the moment. We also post on Instagram a lot. So Insta stories, we have a section called Friday Facts, where we have an amazing team working on issues concerning children's rights and spreading the word about it in an interactive way. We have general body meetings where we meet with our members, brainstorm ideas, spread a word to them, and then encourage them to tell their friends, their classmates. But I would say those are the main pillars that we focus on.
It's really kind of nice that you still have these ways of being connected, especially as a new organization. It's definitely hard to get your name out there and for people to see you, but clearly you guys have done amazing at it, considering you're brand new. But so I guess what's been like the biggest, or probably the biggest challenge coming out of dealing with having to start an org during COVID?
Sure. So actually, we started the organization a year before, so last year. But to say during COVID, I think connecting with members was a big thing, because obviously in-person interaction doesn't really compare to a Zoom. And there's a thing like Zoom fatigue is a real thing. And we noticed that, and we're just trying our best to find ways to keep our members engaged and keep it as interactive as possible. I think it takes a lot of brainstorming and work at the backstage, but I think it's worth it. I think that's what keeps an organization alive, really, its members showing up to GBMs and events. So I would say that's the biggest challenge that I think many other organizations can relate to.
Sure. So for anyone watching who's interested in getting involved with Dragons for UNICEF, how can they do so?
Sure. So they can add us on Dragon Link. We usually send emails about GBMs, events, but also follow us on Instagram because that's where we post quite a lot. So we post on stories whenever we have a GBM. We also create actual posts. So you'll be able to be updated through those means. Or just email us at dragonsforunicef@gmail.com with any questions, any initiatives you might have. We're more than happy to respond and figure out from there.
Amazing. Well, thank you, Yulia, for speaking with me today. I really loved hearing about your organization and all of the great things that you're doing. So I wish you the best of luck and continued success as the year goes on.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, and that's it for this week. I'll see you next week on Drexel Update, but make sure you guys go ahead and subscribe to the channel and follow us on Instagram at inside_ambition. See you guys next time.
Happy Friday, friends, and welcome back to Inside Ambition. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Main Report, the weekly news rewind so that you don't get left behind. I'm Gabrielle Remo. Now, it's week 9. I'm sure you are just as stressed as I am. However, I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking about some awesome Philly stories. We've got a bunch to talk about today, so let's get into it. First, let's talk about Joel the Process Embiid, or for big fans, Joel Do a 180 Embiid. Joel Embiid, the center for the Philadelphia 76ers, pledged to donate $100,000 from the NBA All-Star Game on Sunday, March 7th. Those on the winning team win $100,000, and those on the losing team win $25,000. However, Embiid pledged to donate the full winning amount, regardless of the outcome, to help combat homelessness in Philadelphia. His contributions will go to several city organizations, including Project Home, Sunday Breakfast Mission, and Youth Service, Inc. His donation will provide 4,000 essential clothing items for homeless teens and adults, 15,000 meals for homeless and underserved individuals, care and treatment for 100,000 homeless individuals receiving COVID-19 vaccines, support for former homeless families, funding a 6-week summer camp for 50-plus at-risk and homeless youth, and shelter, and to provide essential needs for over 300 homeless teens facing home insecurity or homelessness. And overall, this is a big win for the city of Philadelphia, regardless of the outcome of the All-Star Game. Now, for some more philanthropic news, the Rainer Institute and Foundation, an organization from Seattle, is partnering with Drexel and the University Science Center to help minority entrepreneurs in Philadelphia. The founder, Peter Weidner, a Philly native, is creating a seed fund with a $500,000 grant that will be used to support programs and address the massive inequality in minority business ownership. The foundation's partnership will help bring attention to minority businesses and fund startups for new minority business owners. This is a big step forward for Philadelphia, which has less than a quarter of its businesses minority owned. And the forward-looking news continues. Those in the STEM field continue to step up. Specifically, Renee Harris, a West Philly native who has undertaken the task of bringing her STEM-educated background into early childhood learning. As the CEO of STEM Prep Academy and founder of Esteem Girls, Inc., Renee wishes to be a person whom she herself did not have, a mentor and an inspiration to younger generations. With minorities only representing 9% of the STEM workforce, people like Renee are the kind of leaders we should continue to uplift. STEM hands-on activities, educational workshops, and even publishing a STEM children's book series aren't even half of the goals Renee has to complete. She has a noteworthy vision to have a STEM-based school pre-K through 8th grade, and she has my support all the way. And lastly, a Philadelphian was on Shark Tank. Philadelphia native Jared Cannon was on ABC's Shark Tank last Friday to present his company and product, Good Food Jars. Good Food Jars aims to make healthy eating easier through layers of healthy food in order to improve the lives and communities by providing responsible, respectful food choices for all. The food is packed in sustainable jars, and it is only made using whole food ingredients and sourced locally whenever possible. The salads can be mixed within the jar too. Cannon pitched Good Food Jars with pride to Sharks Robert Herjavec, Lori Greiner, Kevin O'Leary, Mark Cuban, and Damon John, and a few of the Sharks bid. Lori Greiner and Robert Herjavec teamed up for a joint offer of $500,000 in exchange for a 10% stake. Cannon seized that deal and swam out of that tank happy. Hopefully, this won't be the last we're hearing of Good Food Jars from Philly. But that's it. From Joelle Duo 180 Embiid to Women in STEM to Good Food Jars, lots of great news coming out of Philadelphia this week. Thank you for watching this week's episode of The Main Report. Remember to be kind in all that you do this week, Dragons. I'll see you next Friday, and good luck with finals. Bye!
Hey Dragons, it's Paige here with your weekly Thunder Index, where we discuss all things science, storms, stars, and sustainability. Per usual, let's head into this next week of weather. It looks like we have a warm, wet, and gloomy week of weather ahead of us. Temperatures will get all the way up to 70 degrees. Yes, you heard that right, 70 degrees. But they will dip down to 37 degrees, so we're not in the clear for warm weather just yet. We have potential for some scattered rainstorms throughout this week, and there will also be a fair amount of wind as well, so hold on tight to those umbrellas. Moving up in the sky and into the stars, let's recap on the last week of astrology and what it means for you. How are you guys hanging in there? Are your emotions getting the best of you right now? Have finals started to take an extreme toll on you? Well, if the answer is yes to any of those questions, you are not alone. It seems that the kickoff to this Pisces season has been nothing but a passionate one. Emotions are running high, people are anxious, and it can be an overwhelming time, especially with the amount of workload that we have here, Dragons. Do yourself a favor and hang in there, you're almost there. Friday evening, the last quarter moon was exact when the sun in Pisces formed a square with the moon in Sagittarius. And if you didn't catch any of that, all you really need to know is that this is why we have all been a mess lately. After basking in the awareness symbolized by last week's full moon, we disperse our knowledge and come to a point where we need to decide what works for us and what does not. These decisions are all in preparation for this week's new moon. New moons are a chance for new beginnings, a fresh new start, and the perfect way to close out a difficult term. Take this week and do a little mental organization. Try your best not to start a new project during this time. Work on what is right in front of you and get it out of the way. Focus on yourself and what you would like to leave behind with this new moon coming up. Is it a project that you've been working on, a new exam that's coming up? Whatever it is, hang in there. It's almost complete. Make sure to mentally check in this week, Dragons. Really take a moment, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, how am I doing? If you feel like you could use a hand, don't hesitate to reach out to Drexel's free counseling center at counseling@drexel.edu. Here you could schedule a same-day appointment with a trained therapist. For more resources and information, you can visit Drexel's Counseling Center page at drexel.edu. Please remember, Dragons, your mental health always comes first. Now heading back down to earth and onto campus, let's take a look at Drexel's COVID numbers. Between February 22nd and February 28th, Drexel performed 3,823 tests with 57 coming back positive. This moves our percent positivity up to 1.5%. This is unfortunately much higher than it was the previous week, which was only 0.7% positive. So Dragons, please make sure you are following the proper guidelines and staying as safe as possible so that we can all return back to a normal campus as soon as possible. Speaking of COVID number trends, just 2 weeks ago, the New York Times came out with an article presenting compiled data gathered from universities' public dashboards across the United States. Drexel University was one of those schools. When pulling up Drexel's data, the New York Times claims that our university's COVID numbers experienced a 191% increase, when in fact, our numbers are some of the lowest that they ever have been, which you can see from the Drexel COVID dashboard as well as what we report week to week on this segment. Dr. Marla Gold, Director of Return to Campus Operations, sent out an email to student, faculty, and staff saying, "The presentation of this data is misleading for several reasons. And I believe it is important for you to understand that our campus community is doing a very good job at protecting each other, preventing COVID-19 transmissions, and keeping case counts low." She then goes on to explain how the data can be interpreted in many different ways, and that no standard methodology was used for this published data set, leading to marked inconsistencies as well as incorrect comparisons and assumptions. Because of this, it is problematic to attempt to use this data as a way of comparing or judging the relative success of schools' responses to this pandemic. You can find a link to the New York Times article as well as Dr. Gold's email in the description box below so that you can see the information for yourself. Now that we have Drexel's COVID numbers all figured out, let's switch over to sustainability and take a look at my plant of the week. This week's plant is a bamboo palm. You have definitely seen these large beauties before, if not as an accent piece in your home, as a piece of culture in media. These are some of the most commonly grown palms, and they can add a tropical flair to any room. They don't require a lot of light, so they can make an ideal houseplant. But when they have access to full light, they can grow up to 20 feet tall. There are over 100 species out there, so there is definitely one that could pique your interest. As if you needed another reason to get one, they can also aid in the removal of harmful elements. These elements can include benzene and formaldehyde. Removing these harmful chemicals from the air makes these a great plant for sustainability. In fact, I even have my very own palm that sits right beside my desk. Her name is Ruth, after, of course, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and here's a picture. And that is all of the science, storms, stars, and sustainability that I have for you this week. It's always thundering in Philadelphia, Dragons.
Hi, I'm Lizzy Friedman, this is Inside Ambition, and you're on 34th and Art, where we talk all things arts and entertainment in and around Drexel University. This week, we're taking a look at Essential, the Drexel Co-op Theater Company's latest production of Verbatim Theater Project. This is a project I personally am really passionate about. I've been working as one of 3 assistant directors on this production since the summer, and I'm so excited to share it with the Drexel community. And hell, why not? The whole world, too. What is verbatim theater, you might ask? Well, it's literally just like it sounds. It's verbatim words that people have said and people act them out. It's not like a normal script where an author is like deliberately planning out the words that a person is going to say. It's real people and they're real unfiltered words. Each year, the Drexel Co-op Theater Company produces a handful of shows. And this year, we've adapted with the times and devised our own virtual show. Cast members of Essential spent all of the fall term getting to know and interviewing one subject of a person that was deemed as an essential worker during the COVID-19 pandemic. Their interviews highlighted the struggles felt through these troubling times, not only with the pandemic, but with subsequent national events. You know, the hellfire storm that was the year 2020. Not only is Essential based on essential workers, but the series also highlights voices by being performed verbatim based on individual interviews. Director Bill Fennelly is here with us to talk more about this long-lasting project. Hey Bill, nice to see you.
Hi Lizzy, great to see you.
Thanks so much for joining us. I'm so excited to dive deeper into this project and let the people know.
Great, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So we've been working on this project together for a while now, and I know you have kind of an interesting backstory of how the inspiration came to you. I'd love to hear it again.
We were supposed to be here at Drexel. We were supposed to be producing the Laramie project last. We were going to be going into rehearsals about a year ago. We were going to be producing it in the spring of 2020. And then COVID happened, and we decided to pause that production. And we thought, well, we'll postpone it to the following year. And there was so much happening in 2020 that when it came time to talk about the season, I said, as strongly as I feel about the Laramie project, I feel like it might not be the right story for us to tell when we return when we produce work in 2021. There was so much chaos around COVID and what it was and how to stay safe. And I thought those are the stories I'm really interested in. These people who at great risk to themselves and to their families and to their well-being continue to go to work to keep our society open and moving forward. And they are heroes, people who went to work, who kept going to work as everyone was pivoting, as everything was shutting down, changing, working remotely. And the question of like essential worker was very hot in the spring. Who was an essential worker? Who wasn't an essential worker? What does that even mean? And we started there with the question, with looking at essential workers, but it very quickly sort of blossomed outward to embrace the whole idea of what does essential mean, who is essential, also what is essential, and that became the foundation for the investigation. And it felt timely. It felt like we were able to examine this very challenging time we've all lived through, but it allowed us a way to look at it through an angle that was about positivity and how we as a collective, as a society, reach out to each other and keep us moving forward. So that's how it was birthed.
Yeah. On that, I think that the verbatim aspect is like what really makes it so great. Like these unfiltered words by these real people who aren't, characters written up by an author and like very calculated words. They're just the words that these people just wanted to say and it felt truth to. And I think that that is so beautiful. And it's been really, really amazing for me to be able to like analyze and work with actors, this text and like this language and how like raw it is really. And it gives such a great sense of connection. And that kind of a little bit goes into my next question of how you feel essential will impact audiences.
Oh, wow. So I will speak about essential from my experience of essential. And while the idea began as initially as a way of making sure that our students were cared for academically and creatively, I was not prepared for what happened. Two individuals who were similar in some ways, but very distinct in many other ways, who had been isolated and remote for so long during a very intense period, to have people, human beings, in a space that was about hearing each other and seeing each other and having that be reciprocal, because we tried to train our students to create interview spaces that were about empathy, deep listening, and making the subjects feel that they could be trusted, because we wanted to be trusted, right? That was very important to us. And to experience 24 distinct moments where two human beings who had been isolated and remote and living through this terrifying time were hearing each other and seeing each other was so powerful. And we've tried to pull that feeling into these 24 stories that we're sharing. We're now in the editing phase, and so I'm watching each of the stories 5, 6, 7 times, and it's a really beautiful exercise in slowing down and listening. It's not a television show. It's not a movie. It is gentle. It is quiet, and it invites us, the audience, to listen. to listen to with our whole being to the person who is in front of us. So I think the Essential Project is a tremendous opportunity after this really difficult year to be able to feel connected with the world around you, and maybe to hear perspectives that you hadn't considered. I think it's really beautiful, and it is 24 parts. Some episodes are like 5 minutes, some are 17 minutes. So it really is. I would encourage everyone to watch all of them, really, and to go on the full journey. And you can watch a couple in a night, or you could watch one a night if you want to give yourself the full journey of it. But I'm excited to share this grand experiment with our Drexel community. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. I know that you really care deeply about every single one of these stories, and a lot of the subjects are actually like personal connections of yours. But do you have any specific profession or a specific story that like you really feel so excited to kind of release and let the people hear?
Well, really all of them, right? They all, you feel sort of like a parent. You're like, oh, I love all of them. And that really is true. I think the thing that excites me the most is the diversity of stories that we have. We have many stories of people you would think, oh, well, this falls under the category of like a traditional essential worker. We have doctors, we have a virologist, we have 2 nurses. And then we have stories that are really on the other end of the spectrum that are that I think really push against this idea of what is essentiality, what has been essential in this moment. We have a fabulous drag queen. We have a dramaturg from a regional theater company. We have balloon sculptors, and we have husbands who were flight attendants who were COVID positive and had to negotiate that while also dealing with job loss. It's an incredible array of people of faith, people of science, people who care about moving us. The thing that unites all the stories is these are all human beings who believe in us enough to keep going, right? And I think what the real takeaway from Essential is that we're all essential. That the moniker of Essential really includes every single one of us who has tried to keep our homes, our communities, our cities, our states, this country moving forward in a positive direction. These stories are very, very inspiring. They're only 24. There are millions of stories out there. And it's a really good reminder, I hope, that like we need each other to get to the other side of this, and that without that, it will be very precarious, but like we will get to the other side of this. And there are a lot of us, so many of us, who are essential in very particular ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was interesting to see the progression of what that term meant. Like in the beginning, in March, April, it was like, okay, grocery store workers, doctors, okay, got it. And then it's like, wait, no, it's more than that, that's like, we need other people to keep the world functioning. I can't wait to see that one. I can't wait to see all of them, honestly. Since I've kind of stopped seeing the new versions, I'm like missing all of them. I'm like, I'm wondering how they're doing. Well, I'm so excited to be able to see it come March. And
I think April.
Oh, April.
I think we're having a meeting about it today, but I think it's going to be mid-April. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited to see it, with the date to be determined. Whenever it comes streaming to YouTube. And I'm so glad that I got the opportunity to work with you on this and be able to experience all of this and be able to bring it to the Drexel community and to the world.
Thank you so much for all of your work on it. It's just beautiful. You and the rest of the directing team did such a beautiful job, and the design team. It's been an incredible team, and every single person has been essential.
Yes, that word keeps going further and further. Well, thank you so much for coming on 34th and Art today, Bill. It was nice talking to you.
Good to see you.
Essential brings real people's stories to life, which is great in a time where we can all be feeling pretty disconnected. It's nice to know that everyone is having as crappy as a time as I am. And it was filmed in each of the actors' respective homes, all by themselves. And it's not through Zoom. I mean, thank you, Zoom Theater, but also no thank you, Zoom Theater. Well, I do really hope that you all watch this production. I've learned so much from it, and I know that audience members will gain so much insight from it as well. And it's really kind of amazing how we've been able to pull this production off. Thanks so much for sticking around with me today, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram at @inside_ambition and subscribe to us on YouTube for all of the latest. I'll see you right here at the same address next week. Bye for now!